safe streets, vibrant neighborhoods, successful business and commerce. These are things that make a healthy community. We are a diverse community, rural, suburban, urban, a multitude of languages and ethnicities, ages and experiences. We are a collaborative community. Public-private partnerships make us a model community that others want to follow. It is what makes us unique. It is what makes us strong. The employees of Kent County reflect our diversity and seek to serve our communities.
People in this county, in this area, we wrap our arms around each other. We come together to collaborate, to solve problems. We're all working for the good of the whole. And I think that's wonderful. And you can see it. You can see it as you drive around Kent County.
Our impact starts the day a baby is born and a birth certificate is issued, to protecting children from deadly diseases through vaccination, to the public safety and justice provided by law enforcement and the courts, to offering veteran services and caring for the elderly. Every day we work to keep our communities robust.
I think if you are somebody who's interested in serving your community, in building a strong knowledge base and a good group of people to work with, then the county is one of your best employment opportunities out there. It's been completely rewarding in every way I could possibly explain for 26 years, and I feel like I grow every single day still today.
Leading these dedicated employees are 19-member Board of Commissioners and our County Administrator Controller, along with our elected officials and appointed department directors, placing emphasis on civic involvement, quality housing, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong, solid infrastructure to allow businesses to thrive. Professional, dedicated, collaborative, and innovative.
Behind the scenes, collaboration between foundations, charitable organizations, nonprofits, for-profit businesses, public sector demonstrated through the county, the city of Grand Rapids, the townships, all the cities and the villages in our area. If we don't come together, then we will not have the strength that we have today, and I only hope to build upon that.
Our aim is to make our communities the best they can be. We are involved in exciting development projects, sustainable recycling programs, and creative progressive prevention programming. We partner with elected officials, impacting policy ideas that become great achievements. We seek opportunities to reach out into the community and offer our services to help our residents make Kent County thrive.
Our relationship is solid, both from a staff standpoint at the county level as well as the Board of Commissioners. And they understand what we do and the benefits that we can do for the community, and vice versa. We couldn't do what we do without the help of Kent County.
While most of us are busy running our lives, Kent County's elected officials, administrator controller, and over 1,600 employees are serving the communities where we live our lives, so we can all have a place we are proud to call home. Kent County, its life well run.
We are here for the Tuesday, May 23rd Legislative and Human Resources Committee. I'd like to welcome everyone. We'll take the first item on the agenda, public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment today? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to agenda item 2, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Moving on to item 3, legislative update. Becky Beckler, PAA.
Good morning. It's nice to be with you this morning. As the legislature continues to focus on the budget, last week the next major piece of the budget negotiations started with the Revenue Estimating Conference. This is the last conference to be held, and those numbers would be used as the legislators and the governor's office negotiate target agreements. And last week they came to that consensus. It was a mixed bag as the general fund revenue, but the school aid budget was up in their revenues. The panel agreed that for the 2017-2018 fiscal year, there would be $28.4 billion allowable. That's an increase of about $73 million from the January forecast. So that was pretty good news. Specifically as it pertains to the general fund, they dedicated $10.4 billion, which is down about $114 million. However, on the school aid budget, they dedicated $12.9 billion, which was up $187 million. So basically, it's a wash because they're able to transfer funds to make it palatable for both the general fund and the school aid budget. So those numbers allow the legislature to begin to move forward. The good news is the state's economy has been growing for the past 9 consecutive years. If it continues to grow next year, we will have 10 consecutive years of growth, which is unheard of in modern times. So we're definitely trending in the right direction, but it's just a little bit lower than what they had hoped for. Legislative leaders met last Thursday with the governor's office. However, due to disagreements as to how to handle the teacher pension fund, the legislative leaders canceled the meeting that was supposed to be held Friday as well as yesterday. They're hopeful to begin meeting Thursday and Friday of this week. There seems to be a significant disagreement between the governor and legislative leaders as to how to handle, or to handle at all, the teacher pension fund. As you probably have heard, legislative leaders would like to close that pension piece of the teachers' retirement plan for new teachers. They would like all of them to go into a 401. Right now, there's a hybrid plan in place, half pension, half 401k. The governor believes that that is a successful plan. He is worried about the cost of moving everyone into a 401k plan, and so there potentially could be a stalemate. If the legislature were to come up with a renewable resource of revenue, and that seems to be the sticking point, I think that could open up more conversations. But at this point, with the significant cuts of between $500 and $600 million, I don't know if the legislature would be able to identify a funding source. And so that appears to be an item of difference as they move forward. And part of the reason why the governor's office is a little leery as to this is if you look forward, and the Senate Fiscal Agency did a very interesting report about 2 weeks ago. As you look forward in the budget, moving out into 2023, there will be about a $2 billion hole due to legislative activities and policies that previous legislatures have put in place. There was the personal property tax cut that is in place that will cost the state a significant amount of money. I think it's about $200 million as we head into 2023. In 2015, the legislature put into place the transportation package. But currently, the only piece of that is some tax increases. If you've renewed your tabs on your license plates, you'll have seen some significant increases. $600 million of the 1.2 comes out of tax increases that started implementing this year. The other $600 million will be starting to implement out of the general fund next year. Next year, it'll be $150 million out of the general fund, and it'll phase in until there's $600 million in 2023. Also part of that package was an extension of the homestead property tax exemption, and that also begins next year at about $118 million and increases up to $218 million. There are also about a half a dozen other smaller pieces. The data collection process that was implemented a year ago, spearheaded by Switch, which is in Grand Rapids. There's sales tax on the differences that were implemented both the last couple years and this year. That could be another $73 million. So as the governor looks forward in years, he sees all of these increased pressures on the budget. And I failed to mention that we're still paying for the mega credits for large industrial. That was, I think the worst part was in 2015 when the general fund had to come up with almost $1 billion. That's now about $658 million, and then by 2023, we think it'll be about $598. So that continues to decrease, but the state did decide to stay with those agreements and begin to pay for those. So that is a burden on the legislature. So that is some of the problems that the governor's office has as it looks for some more pressures on this budget as we go forward. I will keep you updated as whether their target agreements are reached as of Friday. If that occurs, then the conference committees will begin meeting immediately. They can continue to meet with the hopes of still getting done around the June 8th deadline. That is their goal. Given this little situation, we may move into that next week, but they do want to get this budget resolved early summer. There are issues as we separate from the budget conversation that I wanted to make you aware of. The first is Senator Rick Jones and Representative Jason Shepherd are planning to introduce legislation this week that would increase the standard 911 fees from the current 19 cents to 25 cents per line. And it would also increase the prepaid cellular phone from 1.9 to 4.1%. This would garner about $44 million in new revenue. $37 million of that would go to state and 911 programs to enhance and improve their system. There's also, as we understand it, there's going to be language that would allow counties the ability to levy up to 55 cents from your current 42 cents without voter approval. There will be language in that bill. As soon as those bills are introduced this week, I'll get them out to you for your review. There has not been a committee assigned to it yet as far as a hearing, but I wanted to make you aware of that legislation that we believe will be introduced this week. In the House of Representatives Appropriations Committee on Wednesday, they're going to take pieces of legislation up that I think is important to the county. If you recall, there was a court judgment, the People versus Cunningham, several years ago, which significantly restricted how counties could impose fees on courts. And as a result of that, then Representative John Walsh introduced legislation which would allow counties and courts to continue to impose these fees on convicted defendants. That sunset, it was set to sunset this October. So Representative Rob Verheulen has introduced two bills. One of them is to extend the sunset for 3 years. He agrees that he is just kicking the can down the field. But his second bill would create a commission, and that commission is charged with the duty to come up with a program or policies to provide a sustainable court funding system. So those are two pieces of legislation that will come up this week in the Appropriations Committee that I think will be very important to the county, and we want to continue to watch and have impact on that. Those are the major issues that are happening this week. As we look at the priorities that, as a committee put together, we have several of those in play over the next several weeks. As it pertains to the budget, clearly the Kent Services Network within the Human Services budget is something that we're going to continue to seek and those increases. County revenue sharing, I believe we're in a very good place as both the House and the Senate did full funding, and the Senate actually did a slight bump from where they were for the governor's proposal. We continue to monitor the boilerplate, Section 298, and we have had further conversations. And Senator Jim Marlowe, who chairs the Health and Human Services, has asked, and we have delivered to him, our comments as to, as he goes into conference committee, what do we like about the boilerplate, what don't we like, and we've provided that information to him as well as Senator Hildebrand and Senator McGregor so that they are fully prepared as they have those conversations. We're also watching a piece that wasn't on your priority list but appeared in the governor's budget that I think is critical. The governor proposed to end a opt-out provision for the foster care administrative rate, where the state would pay that cost-sharing matching rate. We passed legislation sponsored by Representative Earl Pulaski. The governor wants to rescind that provision. While the House agreed with the governor, the Senate did not. It is a priority of Senator McGregor. He is making it his number one priority that not happen, because that could be a significant cost to the county. Senator McGregor is also working on legislation dealing with the child care fund. We've had some negotiations and some situations with the department to how they handle some fees and what is allowable costs. And he is going to introduce legislation to put that in statute so that we have a clear understanding what is allowable and what is not, and that could have some positive impacts on the county as we move forward. So we're working with him on those critical pieces. So we have several issues in play. I would be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Becky. Commissioner Korndike.
So Becky, just for our purposes, when we contact our legislators, could we get House bill numbers in 1-1 and for the court funding and also the Senate bill numbers? So we know
Absolutely.
we sound like we know what we're talking about when we talk to them.
Absolutely. I'll provide you an update. For the Representative Verheulen's bills, it's 4612 and 4613. And as soon as the 911 bills are introduced this week, I will get that information out to you as well as copies of the bills so that you can take a look at them. While I believe I know what's in the bills, you never know what's in the bills, so I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to review those and agree with our assessment.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Becky? Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Becky.
Good morning.
Just a couple of questions. The budget conversation that looks like it's going to potentially hit a stalemate with the pension plan. Just how far wrong can that go? Could that actually end up being a month after month stalemate?
I would hate that to happen. Yes,
It could.
It could. Senator Meek, and I hope that was just a moment of frustration, indicated that he's certainly willing to come back one day each month until they reach some type of an agreement. I don't think they want to do that. I mean, this legislature has prided themselves on the ability to have a budget done early. But the fact that they're willing to cancel conversations so early means that they have certainly dug their heels in and want to do something. Part of the problem is if you talk to legislators about this, those that voted on the hybrid, they said, a lot of them say this, if they'd known what they know now, they wouldn't have voted for it. And a lot of the problem is with the 401ks dealing with the match. Right now it's a 3% match, where for legislators and state employees it's a 7% match. Representative Van Singel has actually introduced legislation, rather than forcing people into one or the other, he would like to do it more of an encouragement. So if we did if we moved the matching funds up to 7%, would more new teachers just naturally leave the 401k because that's a better system for them and it's perhaps a better retirement system. So it's an interesting concept. He's actually had a couple conversations with the governor who's intrigued by that. So there could be some movement, but again, the governor seems to be pretty strong in wanting to keep the current system. So we'll have to see how long this plays out.
Well, isn't part of the problem that they want to close the defined benefit component of it, but that's an expensive process to close that. But it can only get more expensive as time goes on. So, I mean, I guess that was my impression. Some legislators think this is probably the best window of opportunity we have to close it.
Absolutely. However, from the governor's perspective, the $500 million doesn't come close to the cost, and unfortunately, I don't have an estimate from them as far as what it would.
It's billions of dollars
Yes.
over time, yeah.
And as you look at that going forward, and then as I indicated, some of the other pressures on the budget, they just don't know how this general fund can sustain all of those costs going forward.
Yeah.
That's the challenge we have.
So my second question was, you said that we commented to the senators what we liked and what we didn't like about their language. What did we like about it? Just curious.
Well, I think as we look at the difference between the Senate and the House, there were some provisions in the Senate that I think we could live with if we had to, where in the House.
That's a little different than liking it. but I-
Exactly. Poor choice of words on my part. We could live with some of the boilerplate that was included in the Senate version. However, there were some provisions in the House version that we simply had to adamantly oppose and ask that be removed. I think Senator is siding with us on many of the conversations. He likes the legislation that the boilerplate that the Senate put together, and it seems pretty strong at this point that that's going to be something very similar to that. So, yeah, I would change the word to something that we could live with versus not live with.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Becky? I just have one in our legislative priorities when Rob is looking at those fees. And I have the same section, or if it deals with different courts, but we also had that priority about reimbursing Kent County for the mental commitments that are out of county, and we talked about maybe to recoup those costs, changing the fee structure for out of county residents. So I just wondered if that could be maybe added.
You know, that's an excellent point, Commissioner. It's something that we had the conversation with him during our legislative breakfast. He
Right.
seemed very interested in.
Yeah.
So I believe that we need to follow up with him to
Okay.
see if that could be included.
Yeah, because if that could be included in that section, then that eliminates the need for another bill. so.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to item 4, the 63rd District Court Performance Measurement Review. Kevin?
Good morning. I'm Kevin McKay. I'm the District Court Administrator at the 63rd District Court, and I bring you greetings from Judges Smolinski and Judge O'Hara and the staff at 63rd District Court. I'll be brief because I'm going to leave more time for Dan. But first of all, I just wanted to hopefully have our statistics there. On the caseload data, I just want to give you a synopsis. We're doing some of the caseload is up and some is down, but in general, the criminal cases have been up over the last couple of years. You can see from our caseload that we process. And the processed cases include new filings, reopened filings, the actual cases that we're processing, that our staff is processing throughout the year. Our parking, infractions in parking is down from last year. We had a little bit of a tick up last year, and that has to do with just tickets that are written by all the law enforcement agencies. And then our civil cases were down for 2 years in a row. So for whatever reason, civil disputes are on the decline in our court. And that may be, hopefully it's an indication the economy is bouncing back. People are paying their bills, but I don't know about that. The other thing, then we talked, there are 2 areas that I'd like to address. One is case flow management, which has to do with our case age. How are we moving the cases through? And you can see from the data in our performance measures that we're doing very well. Our felonies are doing great. Our misdemeanors are a little bit slower. The state Supreme Court sets time guidelines, and so that's what those percentages are in your performance measures. We're down a little bit on misdemeanors, but we're looking at that and assessing what can we to keep those cases moving. In the civil area, our civil cases are being disposed of really good, and we meet all the guidelines, the time guidelines, except for small claims. We did have a little bit of a drop to 90% within 126 days, so we're looking at that, and we think it's just some case processing on our end with our staff, and it has to do with we think it's small claims cases that don't get served on a defendant. We need to get those moved through and dismissed for lack of service. So we're going to look at some of the things as to why that dropped significantly. In our traffic and parking, those numbers are good as far as their case age. We're moving those out within 84 days is the time guideline on those. I would like to mention one of the other performance measures is our timeliness of abstracts to the Secretary of State. So when people get a traffic ticket or drunk driving or any kind of offense that's abstractable to the Secretary of State, the Secretary of State, they keep track of how courts are doing, and we've always done very well. And last week at the Court Managers Conference, our court was awarded the 100% timeliness. So we submit 10,000, last year we submitted 10,410 abstracts, and only 36 of those were late beyond the 10 days that the Secretary of State. So they round that up, it's to 100%. And we were only one of 9 district courts that got that 100% award. A lot of courts get 99, but we were able to get the 100%. And so I'm proud of our staff to be able to get those abstracts in, and it's all done electronically now, so it's just a matter of disposing of that case in our case management system. So the other piece, other than case flow and case age, is workflow, and that's where I think we're doing well on the case age. I think where we're looking at some system improvements. We've made a few this year to be able to how we process those cases and make it more efficient. We had SCAO come in and do a map of our probation department. If you remember, possibly during the budget cycle, we were able to build into our budget 2 new probation officers. So that's going to help our service levels in our probation department, so we can hopefully reduce recidivism, get people on the right track so that they're making better choices and they're paying their debt to society. The other thing, significant accomplishments, is we've implemented some workflow, and we're working on implementing them in the courtroom, in all the courtrooms, is getting forms to people right in the courtroom. Disposing of the case sooner so they don't have to go back to the front counter. So the only reason they'd have to go back to the front counter after court is if they're going to pay that day. Otherwise, we can get them their forms in the courtroom, get them out the door, and that makes them happy. It cuts down on staff time and congestion at the front window. So we're hoping to make those improvements and look at those things that we can improve our work. The only other thing I'd mention is coming up, we've begun discussions with the Sheriff's Department about possibly getting a second deputy at the court. So we'll continue that discussion. We have one deputy that covers 3 courtrooms that are generally running at all times, and then we sometimes have the 4th courtroom. So he floats, that deputy floats, and we think that that's something we need to maybe have a tag team and have 2 deputies to be able to cover those courtrooms. So we're talking with the Sheriff's Department. Other than that, I think things are going well at the 63rd District Court, and we're always looking for areas of improvement, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Are there any questions today? Commissioner Corday?
Thank you, Chair Bolter. So I'm looking at the bottom of page 4 under the traffic division, and it looks like there's a decrease of about 10% from 15 to 16 on civil infraction and parking cases. So is it less parking? I mean, it can't be better driving.
I'm sorry,
what I
which
experienced.
one?
Bottom of page 4, efficiencies, actual expected number of civil infraction and parking cases. In 15, it was 7954. In 16, it went to 7152. What's your explanation or your opinion of why that drops so significantly?
Yeah, it's basically, it's hard to say, but basically it's just the tickets that are getting filed in our court. So
So not enough PD on the roads?
that's generally what I think, because I don't think that there are better drivers out there, so it's really
I
just
certainly don't think there's
enforcement.
better drivers out
No.
there from what I've experienced. I don't know about what other people experience.
And you can see, last year in 2015 there was an uptick. So, and that could be, a lot of that could be dependent on whether the sheriff's or whether the state police has a new recruit school. Sometimes rookie troopers tend to write more tickets than others. So that can be part of it. It could just be road patrol. You're on road patrol. But I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth as far as
Okay. All right.
how many there should be.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Steck?
Thank you, Chair. So the other number that seems to be going down is just the general civil filings. Again, compared to criminal matters, that number's trending up, which doesn't surprise any of us. That there are fewer civil filings, and you're still in the expanded jurisdiction with going up to 25,000 jurisdictional level. One might conclude that as a community, we're getting along better, and so people are filing less for that reason. I'm a little skeptical on that interpretation. But a darker explanation may be that the system continues to be priced out of the market for a lot of people to be able to use. And I'm just wondering, we've talked about this before, the percentage of our participants in the civil justice system, how many of them are improper, and how effective is the system for improper use. It's a great system, you run a great court, but if our people can't afford to use it for civil justice, we have an issue.
Yeah. I think that is, but here in Kent County, we have so many good resources, and our staff makes a lot of referrals. If we get people that have questions, we'll refer them to the Legal Assistance Center. But I think that a great percent, especially of the credit card debt, you might have a lot of people either don't show up, they don't hire an attorney, so you have a lot of those, and a lot of those are defaults. But the small claims, obviously, all those cases are improper on both sides. But the filing fees for those, other than the e-filing fee that goes to the state to pay for the new e-filing system, I don't think that would be prohibitive. But we certainly, if people ask, that you can get the filing fees waived. There's no in civil. There's, other than motion fees, which don't occur a lot, there aren't any other costs. So whether it's just people don't want to go to court by themselves and feel that they have to have an attorney, I don't know. We try to make it as user-friendly as we can, just so because it is improper, but there's so many resources like this, the Michigan legalhelp.org, and so we refer people, and they want an interview process online where they help people answer those questions and file the forms. So yeah, I don't think that it's a prohibitive effect as far as the cost, but we're certainly trying to look at that. And
Would raising the jurisdiction on small claims from $5,000 going up to $7,000 or $8,000, $10,000, would that help address that?
it could. There's already some increases in place, and I think probably in another year it's at $5,500 now. There's that process that's already passed a few years ago where it's $500 every few years. So that, and I don't remember. I'm thinking it's going to $8,000
Eventually?
eventually. It was $5 at the time, and so every few years it's going up $500, but it didn't this year, so I'm assuming maybe in 18 is when the next step would be. So that can, we get some claims where they're limited to the 5,500, so they choose to go on small claims and they waive anything above 5,500. Yeah, and it's quicker. They can get their judgment, if they're plaintiff, they can get their judgment quicker than go on general civil, so.
Well, something to keep monitoring,
Yeah.
because I think it's an ongoing issue. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin today? Thank you so much,
All right,
Kevin,
thank
for
you.
your time. All right, on to agenda item 5, front of the court performance measure review. Dan Wojtek.
Morning. Pleased to present the front of the court's performance measurement review. I'll try to present this in the format you're accustomed to, that being the alignment with board priorities, key performance metrics, significant budget issues, significant accomplishments, key collaborations, and a quick look ahead. On priority alignment, we do seek to ensure our mission and goals support the priorities set by the board. You can see on the left the 6 board priorities, and on the right are our strategic goals that we believe align with those priorities. I will cover more of those in the goals and metrics. Our mission statement is new this year. It's to serve the court and the families of Kent County, to ensure children are supported both financially and emotionally. We redrafted this to be better understood. Our mission statement had language like we're assisting the family division to facilitate resolution of domestic relations matters, which didn't make much sense to a lot of people. So we tried to make it easier to understand and be more meaningful. It aligns with 2 major legal presumptions. The first is that a child has a right to be supported by both of their parents. That's the financial part. And the other is presumed to be in a child's best interest to have a relationship with both parents, and that's the emotional part, what this promotes through custody parenting time investigations referred by the court. We also enforce parenting time orders so a parent cannot be excluded from a child. I believe this mission statement ties in especially with the board's priority of contributing to a safe community. By pursuing a mission, we have a positive effect on kids being supported and placed in stable environments. On the first of our key goals and metrics, we contribute towards stable by maximizing our grant funding and revenue opportunities. Our main objective in this area is to maintain our contract with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. That's 66% of our funding for child support operations. We have other major funding sources that are stable. We try to maximize our incentive revenues. That's through our collections of current support and arrearages. We were at $1 million in 2016. We also have a new medical incentive fund. We expect to receive about $150,000 this year, and that's through collection of medical on our support orders. We also are 100% of our access and visitation grant funding. It's around $10,000, and that's to promote supervised parenting time when ordered by the court. We promote efficient use of services by conducting our support reviews much quicker than the statutory mandated, and also by processing those orders quickly in our system. Our objective here is to have 90% of all support reviews completed within 90 days after receiving the information. That's a self-imposed deadline at 90 days. The statute gives us 120. It's important to do these quickly, especially when a person's ability to pay is compromised. We were able to reach this goal. 2016, we're 91%. We were completed in 90 days. We did over 3,000 support reviews, and we processed 97% of the orders that came through within 3 business days. That was 13,522 orders that we processed. We promote safe community through our custody and parenting time investigations and recommendations to the court. Our objective here is that 90% of all court referrals for custody and parenting time investigations will be completed within 90 days. That's a court-imposed deadline. Sometimes we can't always meet that. An investigation may be delayed if we're waiting for a CPS report or maybe a psych exam. That was court-ordered. In 2016, we were down at 77% of completing these within 90 days. We were short-staffed. We're doing better this year. Through April, we're at 84% now, and we new evaluators, so I believe we're going to be close to meeting this objective. We also do a lot of parenting time enforcement. We received 2,493 complaints in 2016, but of those complaints were resolved 2,220 of them without a hearing. And that's getting with the parents, trying to make tweaks to their order, try to provide make-up parenting time. You might be interested in some of our custody recommendations. I looked at that. Custody with the father, with the mother, and split custody. I know a lot of folks are interested in how our recommendations come out. We were 35% recommending joint, 18% for the father, 45% for the mothers, and 2% for split custody if you have multiple kids. I think it's interesting that if you look at the joint custody recommendations and the recommendations placement with the father, that's 53%. So I don't think you can see much gender bias there. We look at the 12 custody factors and make a determination what's in the children's best interest. Citizen participation is promoted through our cooperation with the Citizen Advisory Committee and community outreaches. The CAC, you see the picture in the middle of the page here, chaired by Bishop Walter Durham. He's doing a great job keeping our committee on task with what they're supposed to do. He's present today. The other pictures here, upper left is Michigan Works. That's where our responsible parent program caseworker goes each month to try to assist payers who may need some assistance. To the far, well, in the middle, upper is Guiding Light Mission. We go there once a month. On the to the right, upper, that's the recycling plant. The responsible parent program caseworker sometimes places payers there if they can't pass the drug test, and they're there until they can be more gainfully employed elsewhere. Lower left, that's our prisoner outreach. We go to the jail month, especially for those who may be released soon, so we can tell them what to expect and how we can help them when they're released. And the last two pictures on the bottom, middle and to the right, that's Link Up, and that's also LifeQuest. We held amnesty events there last year in August and in December. So our outreach is very important to us. We have an objective of 3 community outreaches each month to various groups and agencies or facilities to reach payers who are homeless, incarcerated, or need special services. This is a new metric for us to keep track of how many we're actually helping out. There's many who may need to find employment, or they may need their order right-sized, or they may need to have us discharge some of the state owed arrears, which we're authorized to do. Since 2013, for those who are qualified, we discharged $46,596 of state owed. It's the state's blessing, because those are arrears that probably can't be collected, and many of those who owed those arrears also owed the other parent, and so they're never going to probably be able to pay that anyways. We demonstrate a proactive and innovative government by systematically identifying cases falling out of compliance and offering to help those who do fall out of compliance overcome barriers. This picture here is from our event at Link Up that we held in December. Our objective here is that 80% of current charges will be collected. Our RT department developed a system known as Case Tracker, which helps us readily identify cases falling out of compliance. In 2016, we scheduled 10,478 show cause hearings. This is a graph showing how we stack up against other major counties in the state. On current collections, we're behind Oakland a little bit. but we hope to be number one by continuing to right-size child support orders based on people's ability to pay. This chart I think you'll find is interesting. There's a myth out there that we collect primarily for the state. It's very much the opposite. You'll see that in the upper left that custodial parents receive 92.6% of our collections. Our second area involves our deputies that were assigned to us in 2016. This is a new metric. We want 85% of our warrants that are handled by those two deputies resolved without arrest. Despite the fact that we are good at collections, there's an average of 3,500 warrants out there affecting around 6,000 children. And these warrants really weren't being taken care of without special deputies. They'd be resolved maybe if there's a traffic stop. It's just an incidental contact with other law enforcement agencies. Since we've obtained those two deputies, they've been educated on the child support system, able to identify a lot of issues. They've become really a major outreach of our office. The metric of 85%, I'm very confident we're going to far exceed that. So far, through April, we've resolved 173 warrants. There were only 3 arrests out of those 173. The other 70 were resolved without arrest. Maybe they reduced the bond or they brought the payer to the caseworker and resolved that way. So it's a 98.27% success rate resolving those warrants without arrest. Trying to develop other measures for the deputies. I don't really want to set a monetary threshold because this needs to be based on ability to pay. I would hope they could visit 5 payers per day minimum, but they often spend a lot of time with each payer. They'll drive some of them around trying to collect money so they don't have to go to jail. They also do a lot of transports, and I think it was last week, there was a guy up in the UP who's been evading his support obligation for years. If he was ever arrested, he was just got a performance or a personal recognizance bond, and he was just evading it. Our deputy went up there, and this guy paid $59,000 so that he wouldn't be taken back. So this is a very successful program. I wanted to show you this chart, mostly at the bottom. This is just a snapshot of our warrants as of March of this year, 3,757 of them. At the bottom, you see bond receipts. Most of the money that we collect does go to the custodial parent, 84.8% went to the parent through this program. We contribute towards a high quality of life through excellent customer service. Our objective here, 80% of incoming calls to our service department will be answered within 5 minutes. In 2016, we didn't hit that. We were at 77%, down a little bit, but which I thought was amazing because that department went through dramatic turnover last year, both in management employees. Through the help of HR, specifically Amy Rolston, we were able to get this department back on track. I think we're doing really well now. In March, we answered calls within 5 minutes at the rate of 84%. So I think the department is stabilizing. We also had issues with a state-imposed IVR system back in November. Folks were having trouble getting through to us. You had to get through that system. It'd take you 5 minutes. We tried it out. We were frustrated as well. We since learned that we could have kept our old number all along. So last couple of months, we've reinstated that, and folks are getting through again. There's a lot of other ways to communicate with us. We have regular mail. Last year, over 123,000 pieces came in. Email, over 10,830. A lot of people come to the front window to get help. That was over 17,000 folks last year. And in fact, that payments usually go through centralized collections in Lansing. We had people pay at our window, which is optional for counties to do, but we had over $5 million paid at the window. Our second objective is to resolve 85% of the incoming calls without transfer. We were successful last year in doing that at the rate of 93%. So 104,550 calls were resolved without being transferred. We try to really train our customer service reps who receive these calls to try to be one-stop shopping so people aren't bumped around. On significant budget issues, board already knows last September it approved our contract with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. This is now a five-year contract, used to be 3 years, and that affects, again, 66% of our funding for the child support program. We have a few significant accomplishments to report. We were recognized by the state last fall as a top-performing urban-sized county in the state in the area of current support paid and arrears collected. And this document was signed by Erin Frisch, of the Director of the Office of Child Support, and Steve Capps, the Director of the Front of Court Bureau. Another significant accomplishment is we established the responsible parent. It's still in development. We have a full-time caseworker, and it's a permanent program. We used to have grant-funded programs that we had to follow specific guidelines, but we can pretty much establish what we want to in this program. Our goal is to help non-compliant payers overcome their barriers. The measures of success is find employment, right-size their orders, resolve parenting time issues, reinstate their driver's license if it was suspended for child support. We've been developing partnerships with employers and agencies. Staffing Inc. and Cascade Engineering help place payers with significant barriers and even felony convictions. Our caseworker goes out to Michigan Works each month. We get feedback from Goodwill Industries, which coaches and helps people set goals. We send some of our folks there, and we get some feedback from them. And if someone has needs counseling or mental health checkups, we can refer them to Arbor Circle, and if they have medical issues, we can refer them to Cherry Health. So we're really trying to build this program. It's an ongoing process. Another significant accomplishment is we established a Front of the Court Cultural Insight Committee. As you know, the county's CIC recently celebrated 15 years. Our staff got really excited about that, and they wanted to create their own committee, so they did. As far as I know, this is the first county office to develop its own CIC. I may be wrong, but I think it is. 14 individuals in that committee. Their mission is to foster a better environment for ourselves and our clients by focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion within the workplace and the community. They sent out a recent client survey that had 780 responses. I haven't looked at the results yet, but we're trying to identify areas of concern and opportunities for improvement. Key collaborations. We worked with the task force recently, which reviewed our child support enforcement program and the use of the assigned sheriff deputies. I want to give a nod to several chairpersons here, Bukowski, Thorndike, and Verhees, who are on the committee. Appreciated their participation. Also from administration, Wayman Brent, and Mary Swanson. Mary did a ton of work on this. I appreciate everybody's efforts on this. Another key collaboration is we partnered with Grand State, their animation outreach program. They had students from Grand Rapids North Park Montessori School help create some short animated videos for us. I'd like to show you one here. They're really quick. I think you get a kick out of this.
Kent County Friend of the Court can help you in a lot of ways. But sometimes people miss steps in the process, and that creates a problem.
For example, if you miss a court date, or if you move and don't provide your address in writing,
or if you don't give information to the friend of the court. The point is, problems tend to snowball. So try to take care of every step in the process.
Respond when friend of the court contacts you.
Keep your contact information up to date.
And appear for court days.
Pay attention to every step to keep problems from snowballing so that friend of the court can help you.
So I thought this was a fun way to try to get our message across. We have 9 other short videos that we're going to put on the website as well. Those are going to be coming out pretty soon. Finally, just a quick look ahead. The board doesn't have the recommendations yet from the community task force. Once it does, we'd like to jump right on that and try to implement those and to establish measures to support them. So, that's my presentation. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Such important work that you're doing, and it's just amazing, all the programs that we have, and just really appreciate all your work. Are there any questions for Dan today? Commissioner Steck?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
First of all, to put it in perspective, if I understand, you have 39,000, almost 40,000 open cases at the FOC.
Correct.
So that assumes there's 2 parents and maybe 2 kids. That's about 160,000 people are within your jurisdiction on an ongoing basis. That's about 25% of our overall population. So I'm not sure that there's any activity that we're involved in that touches more people's lives more often than what you'd, not to put any pressure on or anything.
Well, fortunately, they're not all problematic cases.
Yeah,
A lot
fortunately.
of parents do get along. You know, it's the ones that we see that don't get along.
Yeah, even after divorce, they get along.
Correct.
A couple of questions. Have you seen any impact in what you do with the recent posting of the support guidelines on the internet? It's apparently now available, and I don't know if that. My
Right.
personal experience is it just adds frustration and not solves it, but I just wonder what your experience is.
I haven't heard much feedback. I know it's a resource for parties to go out there and try to calculate what might happen if we went through a support review, which I appreciate, because sometimes people ask for a support review thinking maybe support will go down, maybe it might go up, so they got to be careful what they wish for. But I really haven't seen any feedback. It's still relatively new.
Yeah. Well, if they do it wrong, it creates wrong perceptions, expectations. But
True.
The other question I had was, you mentioned that you did a survey, and that was one of my overall questions to, given the extent to which you're involved in the community, do you do community-wide or participant-wide surveys? And if you do have those surveys, can you make those available to us?
We don't do county-wide ones. I'm kind of thinking about maybe doing that. We did with the 2 deputies, though. A lot of payers that they come into contact with show up at the bondings. You know, they don't get arrested, they bond out. We had a real high surge of bond out appearances because of these guys. And we surveyed them to see how were you treated? What was your impression? It was very favorable. I can get that survey to you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Korndike?
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Hey, Dan.
Good morning.
I was involved in the task force, and it was very eye-opening for me, everything that happens and the job that you do and what you have to deal with every day. First of all, I think you do a great job in a very challenging environment and a challenging job. People can't be happy when the third party sort of divides up their money and sends it in different directions. So with that being said, though, I think we resolved the problems or the concerns the community had in regards to the deputies. But we had 2 public hearings, and those folks that came in, they didn't really talk about what the point was. They talked more about their experience with friend of the court. And what I was hearing a lot was they had communication problems, maybe specifically with casework. 2 public forums, and we probably have 40 people speak the first time, 40 or 50, and then maybe 20 or 30 the second time. So, you know, I see that, you know, your numbers here, 80% of the people getting back within 5 minutes. And the biggest complaint, though, that I seem to hear was just staying in contact between, you know, the clients and the caseworkers through email or telephone calls or however that might be. Is there any way that you can think of that, you know, perception is reality? So the perception is if you got, you know, and I do this too, you know, if people are unhappy, they're going to tell everybody they're unhappy. So is there anything that you might be able to do to try to, you know, maybe shrink that number a little bit of unhappy people in response to just communication between your office and them as their client, as being clients?
Yes, I attended those.
I know you did.
Comments, and I think it was 42 at the first meeting.
Okay.
A lot of folks had concerns about not getting through the office. One gentleman said, "You can email them." Well, you can, you know.
Right.
He just didn't look on the website or whatever.
So it's just communication.
Yeah, but one credible concern was because of the IVR that was launched. that the state imposed on us in November.
Okay.
That wasn't a very good rollout. I'm very pleased to report that we could get our old number back. Folks are calling that again. It's resulting in a higher number of calls. What's good with the eyes, if they need just information about their account, we can navigate them and they can know what prompts and get through quicker. But I think with the reestablishment of our main number, I think we're resolving a lot of those concerns again.
So it was a telephone number issue that you talked about?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much.
It was a credible concern.
All right. And thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Melton.
Thank you, Chair. I just have two comments. They're not really even questions, except I would like to meet whoever it is that decided that key goals and metrics would, that your incoming calls are answered quickly, but more importantly, in today's world, what you say, 85% of your incoming calls will be resolved without a transfer. Having that a negative experience with family or whatever, I just know from myself the frustration of calling to ask a question and they'll send you to this department. I finally, please, please, please don't send me to another. I really admire that is a goal of yours, because you do have a population that is already first aware, hyper stressed, or whatever the proper term would be, and that you have made it a priority to reach to them as best you can without a transfer, I think speaks volumes.
Thank you. It takes a little longer to address each caller,
I'm
so
sure it does.
it kind of takes away from our being able to answer calls within 5 minutes. It's kind of a balance there.
But
We're working on
it is, I'm certain it is worth it for those who finally get through. And the last is, and it's always near and dear to my heart, whenever I see an area, a company, a friend of the court, whatever, that collaborates with any of our students, be it high school or the college level, the amount of learning that goes on in all areas, the students, the customers that come in and see that this has become a student project, I just cannot imagine a more win-win-win situation always.
A fun project.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're just excited as the students were. So
Well,
don't judge Feeney, you really
and
like
they
it.
learn. I mean, and it helps the customers to know that students are learning. I think I would think, boy, someone younger, it's not just, established people that I'm working with. I just can't help but think that that's a positive thing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I apologize to my senior commissioners, but the new commissioners, and perhaps we can take this offline after the meeting. So just quickly, how exactly do you determine the ability to pay? I see on one of the slides that we have a Michigan Child Support Formula Manual, but just briefly, how do we do that?
Yeah, that's state mandated. That isn't the law that all the courts, all the FOCs have to follow that manual. And as was remarked, the public now has access to that online. But it's kind of a complicated formula. This would be real easy back when I started 30 years ago, and now they really complicated things, interjected a lot of medical stuff. And it can be difficult. When we do a support review, we send out a questionnaire to the parties. We try to get the information back. Sometimes we don't get the information, so we have to go to our online sources. We have a data warehouse to try to look at quarterly hire reports. Is this guy hiding or gal hiding income? So everyone has an opportunity to object to our recommendation. If they object, we have a court hearing on that. So.
And is there a penalty for filling out what I guess is a financial disclosure form on behalf of the parent who owes child support?
No, everyone's truthful on those. No.
That's good to hear. Great.
No, we haven't. I haven't seen any fallback on that. I mean, if the court catches somebody at a hearing doing that, it can certainly hold them in contempt.
I have just a couple quick questions on page 7 of what you provided to us. Bullet point, I guess it would be 3 under objectives, just for my own interest. 70% of payers sent to jail at show cause hearings will make the required payment and be released within 2 weeks. Do we have kind of a recidivism issue where it's the same people over and over, or is it just different people, and after those 2 weeks of it's kind of a wake-up call, and we've learned from that.
You see a few of the same faces every once in a while, but I don't think we can let up on them. I've seen individuals eventually say, yes, okay, I'm going to have to comply. I don't care how mad I am at the other parent. This is the court order, and the court needs to enforce its orders. We look at that measure because we don't want to make recommendations to the court for incarceration if they're just going to sit there. It doesn't help anybody. So we'd like to have very quickly. Most are released within a few hours. Some have the money in their pocket as they're being led off into detention. I think it's a good program. What I'd like to do maybe with the judges is, for those who are sentenced, if the judges want us to check with the jail to see if they're still in there after a week or so, we'd like to do that. The court might be willing to adjust its sentence.
Okay. And then lastly, same page at the bottom, percent of those referred to the responsible parent program due for an appointment with the FOC worker within 14 days, and we're expecting 65%. I assume that's a really good program. I assume that's something we really want to push. Is the 65% because of just parent schedules? Is it we don't have enough people and staff to provide more services? Just kind of wondering how we can bump that number up.
Yeah, I set that a little low because it's a new program. We only have one caseworker. We do have an individual who is going to be starting next month, reaching out to new cases, new payers, to try to draw them in. And that person may also be able to help with that program as well. So that was just a metric I set, probably a little low, but hopefully
maybe 18 will be higher. Okay,
we'll try.
Well, thank you again for all your work. It is just so important, and you do such a great job. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And just in closing, I just want to say thank you, Daryl, for your support in the last year and a half that I've been back at the office. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are on to item 6, Board of Commissioner. We are amending section 6.2 of our standing rules, and I am going to turn it over to Daryl to read.
This is a request to recommend to the board to amend section 6.2 of the standing rules. The standing rules were adopted by the Board of Commissioners on April 27th. The chair of the board requested that the Legislative and Human Resources Committee review a proposed amendment to section 6.2 of the standing rules to the Board of Commissioners to approve or adopt a report and, if applicable, refer the specific recommendations to the appropriate standing committee for further action.
All right. I assume we have questions on this. So do we want, first I need a motion to approve? Recommend.
I'll move it.
Support?
Support.
Okay. All right, so we've made the motion and support to recommend it. I would like to open it up for discussion now. We have it in front of us. The changes are in red. I would probably turn it over to Tom to just kind of briefly remind us of what our charge was and how you came up with the language, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. What we were looking at was simply a request of the chair, and we tried to add some clarity in terms of what happens with final reports. This seems to have been an issue for a number of years and a number of standing rules. So hopefully we have it this time. There are really 4 options that happen after a report is returned to the chair and the chair finds that the charge has been met. It's put on the agenda, it's noted as received without any action. So what we're then talking about, what after that event? And if you look at the second paragraph of 6.2, we try to just, again, itemize what those options are. You can take no further action, place the report on a future agenda for additional discussion and possible action. They can refer specific recommendations to the appropriate standing committee for review and recommendation to the board, or the chair can request a motion to approve or adopt the report. If applicable, refer specific recommendations to the appropriate committee for further action. What we had in terms of the Standing Rules Subcommittee was, again, this prior lack of clarity that was there and a question of only bringing specific recommendations to the board. And otherwise, if you wanted to adopt a report, you'd have to suspend the rules. And the chair did not like that as an option, and that's why he was requesting that this body consider changing those rules in line with what you have in front of you. Chair has seen a copy of these rules and has turned around and said, yes, they accomplish what his request is. Next, we turn around and revise the chart. The chart really did not show well a compare function. All right, so I mean, in terms of showing strikeouts and highlights there. So what you have here is what is proposed as the new chart, where you basically have those 4 options listed at the bottom. The previous chart only had 3 options.
So all we are doing is clarifying and providing options for when a report is done. So when the lead bank reports on the front of the court report is done, there just wasn't, after it comes to the board, there wasn't a lot of specificity on what type of action we could take. This now lays out several different options and some more clarity. So again, this language was approved by Chairman Saalfeld. Tom worked on it fairly extensively. I'd like to open it up for discussions or for Tom if anyone has any. Otherwise, I'd like to move on it. Yep, Commissioner Kornick.
Thank you, Chair. So it's obvious who is controlling this. It's the chair, understood. So I guess my question is, when is the direction going to be decided? Before we vote as a board or after we vote as a board on the recommendation? So the committee has their charge of work. Correct. And we have a report. Is that when the chair is going to establish the direction it's going before it goes to the board for a vote? Or after has to be before, right?
Once the chair determines that the committee has met their charge,
right,
the report is distributed and it's placed on the agenda and noted as received.
Okay, so
that happens automatically. Right. But simply receiving the report does not give substantive effect to anything in the report.
Understood.
Okay, so then the question is what the chair chooses to do for that.
So does the board vote on what's going to be done before it goes to him, or does he make that decision after he has the report?
After he has the report.
And I think it would depend on, does he think there are votes? Are there questions? Does he feel like we need to send it back? You know, it's kind of directing traffic with it. Where is it going to go, or based on the feeling of the board?
That's not how I'm reading this. It's the feeling of the chair of what's going to be done with it. Am I reading this chart wrong?
Well, the chair, I mean, I don't think you could vote on it if there weren't votes to vote on it.
But we're just voting to receive. It's just going to be voted to be received. It's not going to be voted on.
No, we already
further
received
action.
it.
There is no vote on receiving a report. Once the chair determines that the charge has been met, it gets put on the agenda, it gets noted as received at that point in time.
Right.
This simply then delineates what the chair's options are with the report after it is received. Okay, so you can take no further action, and the report simply stands as received.
So all the work is going to be determined, what happens to the work is going to be determined by the chair versus by the board. Because currently, it seems like it's determined by the board when we vote to either receive and file the report.
Right now, we don't vote to receive or receive and file it under the existing standing rules, not under the last 2 years.
But we did with one report.
The reports are technically noted as received. The question is whether you wanted to adopt a report, okay, or approve a report. And the question was whether you could do that or not. And again, with this clarification, it's saying that the board has that option. The chair can request a motion to approve or adopt the report. And
So if the board wants no further action, we just vote it down.
You just vote it down.
The chair's, I view it, and maybe I'm wrong, but the chair's kind of directing the traffic of what people want to do. We've already received it. it's already here, but we didn't have any specificity on what we can do with it after it's been officially received. So this just kind of further clarifies
Well, we
what
did
our
because
options are.
we did because the chair could take parts of the report and act on those.
Still can.
This provides more options.
Just trying to get my head around it, so, go ahead. I'm done, thank you.
Any Commissioner Stephens?
Thank you, Chair. Tom, can you just track a little bit for me, because a task force or a committee can be created by either the board chair or by a standing committee chair?
Correct.
And then the report is completed, and assuming that it has the requisite findings and specific recommendations, if it's accepted by the committee chair as requested or created that, is that received, or does it have to come up from that committee to the full board before it's deemed, quote, received?
It's received by the committee that created the task force.
Okay, so the committee itself can receive it, and at that point, the whole process you've talked about, which is 1, 2, 3, or 4, can all take place entirely within the committee structure.
Correct.
If it goes from the committee up to the board, then received a second time, this time at the full board?
At that point, it's simply a recommendation from a committee.
To the full board?
Correct.
And does it then have the same 4 options that is available to the board?
At that point, the board is not voting on a report, they're voting on a recommendation from the committee, which has accepted its subcommittee or task force report.
Can that committee chair then also ask the full board to take possible actions in its or request adoption or approval?
They could request that as part of their recommendation, yes.
All right. So if a committee is then functioning out of the subcommittee, it's not just the board chair, it could be the committee chair that controls and directs these
Correct.
options.
And that's why the rules state it as the establishing chair.
Yeah.
So it's a question of whether it's the board chair or a standing committee chair.
I think I know received simply means it's done, it's completed, it's been confirmed as client with the mandate of the committee.
Correct.
The other 2 levels of response, other than doing nothing, is really adopt or approve. And what is the difference between adopt and approve?
Okay. We've had adopt and approve historically in our rule here for this. Approve is really more to endorse. Adopt is really more to turn around and take action on it yourself. If you are looking, adopting the findings or the recommendations of a board, you're making those recommendations yourself. If you are approving them, you are turning around and just simply endorsing them, recognizing that they're not within the power of the county to turn around and take action on.
Because you can approve and adopt in blank, and that's the last action you take, or you can approve or adopt with a reference for a specific recommendation to be followed up on.
Correct.
And it could be one of the recommendations, all of the recommendations.
That's correct.
If the only thing that we do is receive the report, then have the chair recommended to the full board to adopt, the full board's consideration at that point to adopt would be basically to agree with the entire communication, analysis, and recommendations of the report.
Correct.
And if we don't have the components of it, it's an up or down vote at that point, unless the chair decides to parcel it through purposes of sending specific recommendations for further consideration.
Correct.
Any other questions? Commissioner Sticks.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so just so I'm clear on this, and I appreciate Commissioner Steck's questions. So for 4, this is a turn of county commission phrase here, request a motion. Can a motion come from the floor to adopt or approve a report?
The vice has the ability to turn around and make a motion to amend an agenda and add a question for the body to consider.
Does it have to come through a committee or through the board chair?
You would be looking at turning around and making a question of considering that once the report is received, okay, the board has ownership of that report. You've received it at that point in time. These are the chairs on. Is it possible you're asking for a member of the body to turn around and take one of these options or make a request like this?
Yes.
That's the question?
Yes, because otherwise the board isn't taking any proactive votes, as I can see.
It's at the discretion of the chair who's established the committee to turn around and first take that action. If there is someone who wishes to turn around and pursue something that's in a report that's been received, I would think that they would still have the ability to look at considering something by asking that if something be referred to a specific committee.
Is there a way to clarify that in the language in number 4?
I think that's simply a question of parliamentary procedure as opposed to the chair's options on reports.
My other thought on this is in the body of the first paragraph. We deleted next and put a rather vague "and." What was the thought process around that?
Simply a question of potentially the size of agendas in terms of when something could come up, whether it had to come up in the immediate next meeting, whether it could turn around and come up on a meeting following that.
Okay, and since, I mean, this wouldn't be in a sense a pocket veto on some level, because the chair would have the ability to take no further action anyway, so this really is just a timing on when it would be put on the agenda.
Commissioner Corndake.
Just one final question. Why weren't we dealing when we did our rules in the first part of the year with myself and you and Commissioner Breeby and Mr. Melton?
I can tell you it was simply a question that didn't come up before the subcommittee at that time. Basically, we solicited requests from potential considerations from staff and from all the members of the board, and no one raised that issue. And people's interpretation of that issue, but that we were only going to act on specific recommendations rather than having the ability to adopt a report or approve an entire report. And so that was the focus of that committee, was making that clear.
But in my 7 times through here, we always dealt with standing rules when we reviewed the standing rules, and I don't ever remember something coming up after we were done. I'm just curious as to why it's coming up now and why we didn't deal with it when we were supposed to be dealing with it.
Well, I think it came up with the ag, didn't it? You had mentioned that the ag subcommittee we had to suspend the rules just to approve, or was it receive?
We talked about it, but we didn't have any specific recommendations like this, which we did solicit from all the commissioners.
Right, we did solicit that. Everyone had a copy of this. This was included, I believe, in what was sent out in the packet earlier this week. I didn't get any questions. I think we were just trying to make more options available, or more clarified options available.
I understand the reason for doing it. I'm just concerned about the timing, that we haven't ever done this before, and now we're doing it. So if a commissioner comes up with something they want to change on standing rules, are they going to be able to throw it in any time within our 2-year period, or deal with it when we typically deal with it? And this is sort of setting a precedent that we can just deal with standing rules whenever we want to deal with standing rules, and the committee that we set up to review becomes insignificant.
Well, I think the timing of this was important because we have 3 subcommittee reports coming in. So we wanted to have some clarity on those subcommittee reports. I don't think that the chair is comfortable with moving forward with those until we have clarity on our options in our rules. So that is why.
I mean, I understand all the reasoning. I'm just a little concerned that we're breaking what we've done in the past.
Tradition. You know, all the reports, you know, there's all these records, and all the reports used to go into Never Never Land, you know, and then there were some questions later on about what happened in that report and what are we doing on that report, as Dan had mentioned. And I agree with Dan, these have never circled back to us before, these recommendations after we did the standing rules. It would seem to me that we'd just amend this and send this back to your committee. I think legislative committee should be on part of some of these answers right here. If we're legislative committee, that we should be answering some of these as how the full board, or if they're just going to be received or whatever. So just a comment on this, but I agree with Dan as being one of the old timers here that we've never done it before, and these could just keep coming up for whatever reason. So.
Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back to the flow chart. Because I was thinking that I understood this, that once a report comes in and it's received, it is the chair that sanctioned the report that controls what happens to that report going forward. And that chair has the right to choose one of the 4 options that are set forth in the rules. Correct. What Commissioner Skaggs is asking suggests that any board member can take some initiative with respect to that report, either it's in its entirety or any of the recommendations. And if so, what's that flow? I guess I was thinking that it can't get here to the full board unless it goes through one of the standing committees or comes from board chair's decision in response to the report being received.
It is simply a question of parliamentary procedure and the ability to amend your agenda. And again, it's possible under Robert's rules to turn around, and if a majority of the board wishes to amend the agenda, they can request that an agenda be amended. It has to go through that process. You have to have a majority of the board agree with that process.
So you agenda in the board, and it is for purposes of taking a motion to accept recommendation 3 from a report.
Potentially. Any question that would deal with county business, this would be no different.
So if the board chair chooses option 1, take no further action, and a member of the board at the next meeting makes a motion to amend the agenda for purposes of taking a recommendation to implement the recommendations from that report, and it passes, okay, we'll go ahead and amend the agenda. We'll put it on the agenda to take up a resolution to approve recommendation 3. It's then on the agenda. We then debate it, and then we vote it up or down.
Correct. And
So
it may be something that is required to go through a standing committee, depending on the action. So your question may be, I wish to move to amend the agenda to consider referring item 3 in the report to committee or the legislative committee for further action.
I just want to approve recommendation 3 in the report. I like it. I want it approved now. Is it appropriate, or does it have to go back for review at a standing committee?
If it is something that is the province of that standing committee, I think.
Let's say we're in front of the full board. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if it's a question of something that would otherwise be a province of that standing committee, your motion might be out of order, because your standing rules provide that questions go to those committees. The standing committee, by the way this is written, allows for the chair to request that motion for the adoption, okay, but not anyone else to request it that way. So the question is applying.
So that's what I'm asking. If the report comes in and the chair says, I don't want to move to adopt, I just want it to go away, a member of the board still can say, I disagree with it, make a motion to change the agenda, put it on the agenda for option 4, adoption. The majority of the board can then override the board chair and do that.
I believe that that motion would be out of order under your standing rules, that if you wish to do that, you would have to suspend your standing rules in order for you to consider adopting that report. And that would take a two-thirds of the board to do that.
All right, so then the chair does have the control pretty much with respect to any of the four options.
Under the standing rules.
Two-thirds. I mean, if we adopt this as it's written now, it's the board chair or the committee chair, whoever sanctioned the report, that controls it unless there's a two-thirds majority.
To take that option for adopting the report or approving the report, yes.
But since there are a lot of questions, we're coming up on the 10 o'clock hour. I want everyone to be comfortable with the language we're approving. Why don't I would entertain a motion to postpone this till our next meeting. And let's make sure all our questions are answered by everyone. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing. So do I have a motion?
Move to postpone.
Okay.
Second.
All right. We will postpone item 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's move on to item 7, Board of Commissioners appointment to fill the midterm vacancies. Darrell.
This is a request to recommend to the board to appoint Carolyn Dellenbush to the Community Mental Health Authority Board to fill an unexpired term ending March 31st, 2019, to appoint Susan Van Enck to the Kent District Library Board to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2018, to appoint Carlton Blau to the Fire Commission to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2018, and to appoint Wayman Britt to the Grand Valley Metro Council to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2017, and the City County Building Authority to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2019. Citizen vacancies have occurred in the Community Mental Health Authority Board, the Kent District Library Board, and the Fire Commission. An interview team consisting of Vice Chair Bolt, Commissioners Brevi and Steck reviewed applications and is recommending the appointment of Carolyn Dellenbush to the Community Health Advisory Board, Susan Van Enck to the Kent District Library Board, and Carlton Blau to the Fire Commission to fill the unexpired terms. In addition, I have provided notice to the board of my intent to retire effective July 1. This will create a vacancy on the Grand Valley Metro Council and the City County Building Authority. Wayman Britt, who will serve as interim county administrator effective July 1, is recommended vacancy on the Metro Council for a term ending December 31st, 2017, and the City County Building Authority for a term ending December 31st, 2019.
Thank you, Darrell. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Breeden.
Support.
Support by Korndike. Any questions or comments on this? Commissioner Steck?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to talk a little bit about the recommendation on the Metro Council, City County Building Authority. If I understand, this would be having Wayman fill those positions past the point where we will presumably have selected a new administrator. What would be the process, and I'm not predicting how this is going to come out, of course, but what happens to the process if John Doe is appointed as the new administrator on September 1?
Good question.
A couple of things could happen. In consultation with Wayman, Mr. Doe might decide that Wayman should stay on, or
Mrs. Doe.
Or Mrs. Doe.
Or Miss Doe.
He said Mr. Doe, so I'm using Mr.
I said John Doe.
Yeah.
Right.
Or Jonna Doe.
Or Joan Doe.
Joan Doe.
Unlike some of the other positions I'm on, it's by virtue of office, filled by virtue of my office, and those will be chair appointments that are coming up in June related to the Experience Grand Rapids, excuse me, and Right Place program, or the Right Place, Inc. But the board historically has appointed the administrator to these two positions. And it isn't by virtue of office, it's based on the board's desired county administrator in place.
So really, if we approve this, haven't we essentially appointed him from the board's perspective, we've appointed him to serve in that capacity regardless of who's appointed as the administrator until we change our mind, or is it?
Or should
He's
we just
appointed
amend the
until
date?
these dates or until such time as the administrator is.
That's more of a legal question, and I'll defer to Tom on that.
The appointments are for the term stated, okay? But again, people to a specific stated term, if they resign from that board, then you now have a vacancy to turn around and appoint someone new. So if you presumably have a new, different administrator or controller who wishes to serve in that capacity, they may turn around and ask Wayman to turn around and resign his position from the board they wish to serve on.
And if he doesn't, it comes back to the board and we can.
There's no vacancy. It won't come back
Okay.
to the board. It'll be an issue between the administrator and the assistant administrator.
And that's, I just contemplated it could be an uneasy circumstance if we didn't put this until such time as the new administrator is implemented or appointed.
Again, as Darrell indicated, both of these offices have been at the pleasure right now on those appointments of the Board of Commissioners. They're not based upon office. So historically, the administrator controller has been appointed to both the Metro Council and to the City County Building Authority, but it's not required to be that individual.
Could be an assistant.
To avoid potential conflict, though, couldn't we just amend the language, just amend the language for term ending, at such time that a new administrator is, could we do that? We don't want to do that.
How often, Darrell, does that meet City County Building Authority?
It meets twice a year. And it's pretty ministerial because most of the work of the City County Building Authority has been related to bonds that have been issued, and it has on since the construction of the convention center. It's normally to appoint officers and then at some point in time to review the audit. So it meets in March and September, or thereabouts in each year. Metro Council meets on a monthly basis. Historically, in addition to being on the Grand Valley Metro Council Board, the county...
Well, we're not talking about the Metro Council because that's going to end next year. We're really only talking about the City Council.
Yeah. Meets twice a year. And honestly, right now, the current composition of the City County Building Authority is, there's a representative from the city, and that's Eric DeLong, the deputy city manager, county administrator, and
So they have a deputy, so
exactly.
we could certainly have an
Absolutely.
assistant.
Yeah.
Is everyone comfortable? Any questions? Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. We'll move on to agenda item 8, juvenile detention, conversion of 2 part-time cook positions to 1 full-time cook position.
This is a request to recommend to the board to convert 2 part-time cook positions to 1 full-time cook position at the Juvenile Detention Center. The Juvenile Detention Center currently utilizes 6 positions to operate the kitchen, 1 supervisor, 1 full-time cook, and 4 part-time cooks. The center has found it increasingly difficult to maintain efficient and cost operations with its current staffing arrangement due to turnover with part-time cooks, which has resulted in 9 recruitments over the past 2 years. Backfilling for positions creates unpredictability in scheduling for the part-time employees who typically have to coordinate their county work schedule with their second job outside of the county. Additionally, over the past year, increased reporting requirements for the school nutrition program grant have reduced the amount of time the supervisor is available to be in the kitchen by approximately a week. The detention center anticipates that merging of 2 part-time positions into a full-time position will improve schedule stability for all kitchen staff, reduce the number of hours the remaining part-time employees have to work, and free additional time for the supervisor to complete reporting responsibilities. The annual cost to convert the 2 part-time positions to a full-time position is $15,718. For the remainder of this fiscal year, it's $3,930. The cost of the positions is funded by the general fund and 50% by the state of Michigan as part of the child care grant, and will be fully offset for 2017 by cost savings associated with the closing of the Haven earlier in the year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kornick, support by Grevy. Any questions or comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on to item 9, miscellaneous. Is there any miscellaneous today? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Safe streets, vibrant neighborhoods, successful business and commerce. These are things that make a healthy community. We are a diverse community, rural, suburban, urban. A multitude of languages and ethnicities, ages and experiences. We are a collaborative community. Public-private partnerships make us a model community that others want to follow. It is what makes us unique. It is what makes us strong. The employees of Kent County reflect our diversity and seek to serve our communities.
People in this county, in this area, we wrap our arms around each other. We come together to collaborate, to solve problems. We're all working for the good of the whole. And I think that's wonderful. And you can see it. You can see it as you drive around Kent County.
Our impact starts the day a baby is born and a birth certificate is issued, to protecting children from deadly diseases through vaccination, to the public safety and justice provided by law enforcement and the courts, to offering veteran services and caring for the elderly. Every day we work to keep our communities robust.
I think if you are somebody who's interested in serving your community, in building a strong knowledge base and a good group of people to work with, then the county is one of your best employment opportunities out there. It's been completely rewarding in every way I could possibly explain for 26 years, and I feel like I grow every single day still today.
Leading these dedicated employees are 19-member Board of Commissioners and our County Administrator Controller, along with our elected officials and appointed department directors, placing emphasis on civic involvement, quality housing, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong, solid infrastructure to allow businesses to thrive. Professional, dedicated, collaborative, and innovative.
Behind the scenes, collaboration between foundations, charitable organizations, nonprofits, for-profit businesses, public sector demonstrated through the county, the city of Grand Rapids, the townships, all the cities and the villages in our area. If we don't come together, then we will not have the strength that we have today, and I only hope to build upon that.
Our aim is to make our communities the best they can be. We are involved in exciting development projects, sustainable recycling programs, and creative progressive prevention programming. We partner with elected officials, impacting policy ideas that become great achievements. We seek opportunities to reach out into the community and offer our services to help our residents make Kent County thrive.
Our relationship is solid, both from a staff standpoint at the county level, as well as the Board of Commissioners. And they understand what we do and the benefits that we can do for the community, and vice versa. We couldn't do what we do without the help of Kent County.
While most of us are busy running our lives, Kent County's elected officials, administrator controller, and over 1,600 employees are serving the communities where we live our lives, so we can all have a place we are proud to call home. Kent County, its life well run.